Okay, so let's do this. You can see Luke's little toys and stuff back there. So today, I think I start a lot of these by saying like I didn't think I was gonna be doing this, but here I am. So today, for the reading, we're on page 178. And this is the last of the adaptations and holding patterns before we get into techniques and exercises for the fourth hub. And that means we are about to get into the fifth hub. And that is going to be, I'm really looking forward to it. My cycle with this hub has been, I will now call it extraordinary. Very grateful for it. And it has changed my own knowing of what Parinama method is as far as reading the book. I used to feel pretty strongly about kind of this idea of building a practice and what that looks like. But what I'm really finding here is that just by having tools, so that is something that does come with, like, some, having tools to use and having what I'd consider like the key pillars of TPM as outlined in the Parinama for Beginners classes in the 4 sessions, that going through just reading and like allowing the concepts to kind of like wash through me and be contemplated and be felt and empathized with and like really integrated is in and of itself transformative. And so, I'm really at the point where I think I'm like, you actually, with a bit of a setup that could be created, like a framing, that just reading TPM, just reading one section of it a day, if you have some of the practices coming into it, and if you have some of the kind of concepts, the overarching concepts, like very specifically that there is nothing wrong with you. And I think one of the most important things is to just spend time every day in a space that is reinforcing this notion. And it's not because I'm saying it, it's because I'm saying it and something in you is like recognizes the truth in this. That's the showing up part. It's not that there's someone that's saying it and it's like, "Huh," it's like and this is the thing I really wanna emphasize, is that it's not the saying, it's like noticing that, the leaning into that, and the part of you that sort of lights up and goes, "Huh," or the part of you that maybe, like, pushes a little bit back on it, but still is kinda like, "Hey, can we listen to this?" Because, one of the things that we're trying to, like, exercise, like, as an exorcism here, is this notion of this, like, internalized insubordinate child, I have no willpower, or, it's like, I can't get anything, like shame and all this stuff, like, I'm such a this. You're not. I mean, it's like one of the things about willpower, and this is, I mean, absolutely a tangent before I get into this last section, which is, by the way, like, really strong. Very good. This is and particularly meaningful for me right now. I think for most folks, if you've been following along, this kind of ties up a lot as far as being able to really enter into techniques and exercises and do some expansion. But, oh my god, I totally lost my train of thought. It's like, oh my god. Oh my god, it's really funny. Look, so yeah, listen, the internalized insubordinate child, like, and this idea, okay, I'm back, which is that, it's like, I'm lazy. And so one of the things is like, if you're like, you're like in bed or you're resting, you can't actually feel the rest if there's this distortion overlay of it, of being like not allowing yourself to fully inhabit it and like have the moment of rest. And even like one of the things about Like I'm gonna go back to like I'm, like this like insubordinate, like lazy child kind of thing, which is like, well, treat yourself like somebody that you respect, which is and treat yourself like somebody who's important, which is that you're seeking out to understand yourself, like and actually like asking yourself, and without it being a trap, like literally with like like opening the aperture as far as having a um earnest and sincere desire to understand is to seek to understand it, like seek to understand the phenomenon. So if it is like, I can't seem to get myself to do this thing, ask yourself about that. Maybe you don't actually want to do it. Maybe it's something that actually like really feels like it's dehumanizing for you. Like maybe it's something that makes you feel bad about yourself. And so I mean, one of the things I just want to introduce here is like maybe the reasons that you're not doing things, and this is part of like deconstructing and reforming a new narrative, is like there's this idea that's like I know how to do everything, except there's I'm just not doing it, so I'm kind of like an asshole. Like, it's like, see, I could make my life better, but and I know how to do it. Even stuff like, okay, let's talk about like physical health, where it's like I could be eating better, I could be exercising, but I don't. And it's kind of like changing the narrative here to say like maybe, and all the by the way, that stuff is not even conclusive science that that's how like, you lose weight or whatever. I mean, maybe there is, like there's but there's so much stuff about like insulin resistance and different types of metabolic issues with like thyroid and even kind of more, like m- e- like more kind of like I guess I'd call like niche metabolisms, just as far as like metabolic functions, just because they're like further deeper outside of our like awareness of them, as we're just starting to learn about things that relate to how a body metabolizes, and also like really what the impact of certain types like cardio and stuff. Anyway, side note, the idea that it's like I'm not doing something because I know how to do it and I'm just like an asshole because I'm not doing it, is to just scrap that and say, maybe I don't know how to do it. In fact, I probably don't. And if and so approaching the things that we wanna solve, the things we wanna resolve with curiosity and openness, not with this immediately, like, door that's slammed shut, which is like, "I know how to do it, and I'm not doing it." So this is that narrative that we're, like, literally actively sniping. We're out, and we're, like, calling it out, and we're absolutely decimating it because it's like, that's an interruption. That's an interruption. Anything that is telling you that it's like the reason that you're anyway is because you're just kind of an asshole. The thing is like, yes, we are accountable. And this is like the level of accountability we are capable of taking is so much higher when we change this entire narrative, by the way, because most people, or not most people, there are folks who would come to this and say like, well, shame is kind of the glue that's holding society together. Chronic shame, that the like fear, all these things, like they have a function, and that's also part of like the chronic aspect of them is like, that's not the function. The function is actually like the acute, organically arising aspect of it. So, yes, it does have a function, but how it's being used to actually create a divide in ourselves has absolutely no function for ourselves. It has functions for other entities outside of ourselves. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to continuously practice this. So, we're spending time, full circle here, believe it or not, we're spending time every day in some way committed to spend like being in this space where we're re-examining this aspect of ourselves, of re-examining this notion and just taking that tangle and slowly teasing it and just creating like just slowly, like, even if it's just a teensy, like, imperceptible, like, loosening and, like, in the tangle, um, that we're showing up for this in some way every day. And that doesn't mean necessarily that it's like every day you're watching a video, every day you're reading the book, every day. It means that in some way, shape, or form, in even something in your activities, even something in like connecting to your body, the felt sense of your body, anything that is about, like really starting to just incorporate, even in like micro doses, aspects of this practice into your everyday. Now, there are practices, I'm just going to mention this in chapter 11. There are practices that are integrated, that are, journaling practices, there are discernment. I'm looking forward to doing those together. It'll be a while because it's towards the end of the book, but just to point to them in chapter 11, if you're looking for some of the integrated practices, we did some of them in Pranayama for beginners. That next class is going to be starting probably um, and I was thinking the end of August, but it's actually probably gonna be like I'm thinking second week of September is probably gonna make more sense for the way schedules work, for folks with, kids and just, yeah, vacations and holidays. So, wanna make sure this is, and also that gives us kind of a clean run of 4 weeks. So, without, because we had the July 4th holiday kind of, like, just, I don't know, break the rhythm a little bit or whatever. So anyhow, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do this reading, and I'm really interested to what's gonna come up here. Um, Very topical for me personally in my own practice. So let's see what arises here. I usually I so another thing I want to mention is that um and this is a quality that is really worth even just pointing to, which is that it's like I don't bring anything up unless it like feels like it has like some energy behind it. And like there's kind of a thing that'll happen like like most, coming into like having a discussion or talking about something is like we're kind of intending our way into it, like a meeting, conversation, whatever. We can have ideas popping up about it, like where it's kind of analogies or like topical or free framing or whatever. And then sometimes we're in a meeting and it's kind of like dried out. You're in a conversation. It's like doesn't really like in once you're in the conversation and you're kind of, putting on effort into like sort of like pulling it back in when it doesn't have like that organic quality of being able to like just like really fit. And, I had a teacher, a meditation teacher, like now quite a lot, like almost, well, 15 years ago, who, and I'm sure other people have heard this analogy, which is to like really trust the flow that like that these notions are coming up, like that the trust in the flow of it versus like taking the things that come in the flow as like things to hold on to, and kind of allowing and trusting that the same sort of inspiration and the force that brought the ideas through will bring the ones that are relevant for and like really fit for the right time. And for this, I really, it surprises me that sometimes the stuff that comes up, I mean, yesterday, it's interesting because for the grief section, to like actively grieve seems like really calculated. But the idea, I actually thought that that would be like active grieving, like kind of doing, being like, this is kind of like grieving, being sad about something actively, that was gonna be for my father. And it actually wound up being about someone that I knew as a young adult. And it was genuinely surfaced and brought up a lot of sadness and also inspiration and memories about why that person had been really special to me and forming um like a really important part of my like young adulthood and creating a foundation for that. So that was a really nice memory. And as far as like just what arises, so it's trusting in that. and trusting that, like, the best option is gonna be provided. So, with that being said, I don't know what your experience is like. You might be watching these and being like, "Good Lord, that's he's he's like, she's maybe she should do a little more preparation," but, yeah, it doesn't seem likely at this point, but who knows? Who knows? That could change. That could also arise as a new, kinda modality. So, okay, so I'm gonna read about envy and jealousy, and I'm not gonna speak to it, ahead of time because it's like I'm like the spoiler alert queen here, or spoiler queen. There's no alert. I just talk about it like what's contained in the passage, and I read it, and it's in there. Where I'm thinking I have like additional insight. It's like the same thing. So, okay, envy and jealousy, and once again, we're in the shadows of the fourth hub. And once again, I'm going to just repeat this. Sorry if this is boring. It's just, I do feel like it bears repeating, is that the shadows are, they are qualities that we are not trying to like banish from ourselves. We're actually just trying to understand them as like, kind of like for what their essence is in terms of what they offer us and in terms of our lived experience and the corrective faculty that they present for the particular hub. And it's like, well, once left to their own devices, that they arise. You know, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but so last night, very similar to like some of the stuff I talk about, I like saw this book on the table, but not this one, but somebody else's copy on the table at a cafe. And I remembered that this book was something I'd actually this book I'd carried with myself. It had been in my bag for a year plus, well over a year, while I lived and traveled in Asia. And I never read it. And so last night I kind of was like, "Huh." And so, like, there was this one part, and I don't know if this will come across as hard as it hit me, um, but it's just kinda one of those things where it's like I'd carried it with me, and then all of a sudden it just like, the timing for it felt really right, or not. It wasn't. I'm creating a narrative around it. It just, I follow these types of threads where I'm like, I see that, and I'm like, "Huh, there's something there." And then on the spot, I downloaded the audiobook and I started listening to it. And I was listening to this as I was walking down the street, and I was like, holy shit. And I pulled this book out of my own bookcase, the copy, and I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna see if this like means anything, if this works this way. But so here, this is The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. Interesting book. Interesting book. You know, has yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't consider myself like 100% aligned with it, but there's definitely like notions in it that flow through that are, um, I felt I read that resonated with me. But so here's the passage. Thus, separateness is the source of intense anxiety. Beyond that, it arouses shame and the feeling of guilt. This experience of guilt and shame and separateness is expressed in the biblical story of Adam and Eve. After Adam and Eve have eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in quotes, after they have disobeyed, there is no good and evil unless there's freedom to disobey. After they have become human by having emancipated themselves from original animal harmony with nature, i.e., after their birth as human beings, they saw that they were naked and they were ashamed. And then he goes on to say, like, should we assume that a myth as old and elementary as this has the prudish morals of the 19th century outlook, and that the important point of the story wants to convey to us the embarrassment that their genitals were visible, right? I mean, come on, give me a break. this can hardly be so, and by understanding the story in a Victorian spirit, we miss the main point, which seems to be the following: after men and women have become aware of themselves and of each other, they are aware of their separateness and of their difference, inasmuch as they belong to different sexes. Um, but, I think the thing is, like, the way he's framing this as it relates to, like, love with, in this version, a man and a woman. um, I think I thought that it was a profoundly fourth hub notion, which is that it's kind of this thing, because it's like the original sin thing has been really stuck in my craw lately. Um, and that the sin of, this sin too, but this notion that knowledge created the sense that, like, created the false belief, and that the sin is to believe that we're separate from nature, from each other, to believe that we're separate, like that's what knowledge created, that the tree, eating from the tree of knowledge. So anyway, that was like an unexpected detour. Like, so tell me what. We're on that river, just riding that river, right? We're not riding it, we're letting it flow through us. I don't know, whatever. Let's just go with this. Okay, so I'm gonna read about envy and jealousy. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Hold on, I'm gonna give that a gong. Ding. That was it's very fourth hub. And honestly, it's very fourth hub, and it, like, and the reconciliation of that notion for something that I was getting, like, really aggravated about these concepts of, like, being really mad about these notions of, like, original sin, that you're born bad, and, like, and this positioning is, and, like, the biblical notion that, or religious notion, not necessarily biblical. Um, anyway, I thought that was beautiful. Or not even beautiful, just enlightening. All right, so envy and jealousy. Okay, so I'm gonna start reading. So envy and jealousy are okay. No, we got it. We're there. 22 minutes in, we better be there. Oh my gosh. Okay, envy and jealousy are feelings of helplessness and vulnerability in the face of what we want. In The State of Affairs, Rethinking Infidelity, Esther Perel writes, envy relates to something you want but do not have. On the other hand, jealousy relates to something you have but are afraid of losing. So if someone flirts with our partner, we glimpse our inability to control the people we love, and perhaps we fear loss. This is jealousy. So envy, on the other hand, can be awakened when we see our dreams realized by other people. The ability to exist in the discomfort of envy is an indicator of personal power. We may protectively minimize or criticize if we can't bear the pain of our powerlessness in the face of desire for something we do not have. Our confidence and self-esteem are required to manage the vulnerability of wanting things before we have them. See chapter 6. And through sincere admiration, we can look at what we want and soak it in. When we don't feel worthy, it's challenging to allow admiration, curiosity, and wonder. The bravery of the third hub powers our ability to remain open even when there's the threat of heartbreak and embarrassment. As a shadow, a little bit of envy is energizing. Too much is devastating to the required openness necessary for love and for achieving dreams and aspirations. It's looking at envy. I mean, the thing, it's like it's really common where folks will talk about how they don't know what they want. People will say like, "I don't know what I want. If I knew what I want, if I knew what I want." Well, what do you envy? What's hard for you to see people having? I mean, especially when it's like an objectively just sort of like nice thing, like somebody who's maybe having a successful career in the arts or as a leader somehow or as a whatever. Someone who, I mean, honestly, I'd say for me, it would be somebody that has developed a livelihood that's in alignment with who they truly are, with their integrity. That's something, and so I'm naming right now what mine is and why this is relevant for me, is that and I'm so is that and the fact that my envy of that is when people have it, I discredit it, and I kind of have a or maybe do I still? I don't know if I still do. I'm gonna have to explore that a little bit more. But the idea of seeing that and being like, "Yeah, that's just not how it works." Because it's like because there's the thing where it's like, people, you see so much of this, which is like people that are like, "I want money." Well, I want money. I want to be rich. I wanna be rich. And the thing is you can get rich. As far as my own experience of, um, having money and making money and, is that it's not really what you want. You want enough money to, like, absolve the tension of feeling unsafe, but sometimes that can be a first hub thing, which is, like, there's no like, it becomes irrational, like, where you actually do have enough to survive. I mean, it's kinda there's always this, like, "Well, how much is enough?" It's like, it's never enough. It's never enough, like, money. It's always but there are some, like, really, objective survival points, which I don't are separate. So I'm talking separate of actual, like, poverty, being, under threat. But, like, what I would just wanna say is, like, the envy of what we see is like, to look at that as a source of energy and inspiration versus being, like, revolted by it. Because if our 3rd hub and our sense of freestanding worth is requires relativity. It requires betterness than others. It requires validation, and as a result of that, some kind of stack about needing to be, like, better or best or whatever. When that needs construction, when that needs, like, expansion, growth, it needs its own infrastructure, development. Seeing the things where people are doing better than us in the areas where we wish to be doing better than we're currently doing, and doing it in ways that just like it's like, that to build this stack up is to be able to see that and, like, feel the sting of it. There's a little energy in there. It's, like, kinda like, "Eh." And to feel that and to be able to be energized and activated by it versus dissociating and being disgusted or creating defenses or creating whatever. Like I said, this is a good section. This is a really good section. Okay, so success doesn't avoid envy and jealousy. It has a different relationship with it, extracting energy and inspiration through them. Oh, see, there we go. Spoiler, spoiler, Katie. The spark of envy, like honestly, spoiler, Katie rides again. The spark of envy illuminates so that we can explore. This is how to draw what you want closer. However, envy as a shadow is a protection against the pain of rejection, disappointment, and failure through defensiveness. If envy is too intense, it sets a fire of fear and even rage, pushing what we admire away. If we criticize or minimize our desires, we place ourselves at a safe distance from them. Repeat that. If we criticize or minimize our desires, we place ourselves at a safe distance from them. So safe, they can't get close to us. For anyone who's been hurt by deep disappointment, open-hearted admiration is an act of bravery. If we can grieve embarrassments and failures and strengthen our sense of worthiness, if we can grieve embarrassments and failures and strengthen our sense of worthiness, we can admire beauty and inspiration. We can look with wide open eyes at the people doing what we aspire to do, looking for clues and feelings to get a little contact high from their magic, and as a result, draw what we want for ourselves just a little bit closer. Come closer. Whew. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's it. I mean, that is a fully formed right there. And if you want to reread it, 178 through 179. Yeah. And this is the exploration in this hub, like right here in this like envy space, even in the jealousy, because I didn't go into the aspect of jealousy. If you read Esther Perel's The State of Affairs, rethink, like all of her books, I would say Mating in Captivity for anyone in an intimate relationship is an extremely valuable book. She's like not American. She's a relationship like therapist. Speaks 7 languages, is very unencumbered and like consciously explores like moving against a lot of sort of like the oppressive notions of that go into relationships in a very interesting way. Like it's really lush. And I mean, if you want validation, it's a New York Times bestseller like a million times over. Like she's a keynote at like corporate events and stuff. So, don't worry. Like she's she's in she's not like outside of convention. But she, if to explore further into the notions about jealousy in intimate relationships and even like the power and the sort of like igniting, whether you read Mating in Captivity or The State of Affairs, she has really interesting, very dynamic working within a relationship. And a lot, her like one of her notions is she actually has I think I have it like some kind of allusion to it, but in the Eros and Thanatos kind of notion of like that safety and desire, they can't be in the same room together. And so she writes a lot about like what that means to be consciously and actively cultivating those like dichotomies in a relationship. And one thing that's just kind of fun to mention is that she talks about how like the uncertainty in an early relationship is like super energizing for it, but that there's the immediate like push to create security in the like and kind of like lock it down in one way or the other, and that immediately starts to, like the desire and the excitement of the uncertainty, gets diminished as the security comes in. So anyway, very good book. So okay, we did it. We did it. We did it. We're on to techniques and exercises. That comes next. The envy. Be brave. Be brave enough. Let's be brave enough to look at the stuff. Because this is about how we really expand our capacity in our lives to be able to create and build things. And this isn't really about fame or great amounts of wealth. It's really about the integrity of the expression of what we want to be doing and building. So that's another thing, is like stripping out like conventional notions of like what we're aspiring for with success, is like that's also part of the thing about like the notion of exploring envy, which is like for, maybe like folks who have unconventionally really fulfilling lives. And, it's like, goat farmer who makes, like cheese in a little whatever hut or something, like just, there's that. Yeah. Yeah. Explore. And go, and it's just like one of the things is to like go, the only thing I would encourage is with curiosity, is to not take envy at face value, is to actually be like, why is that hard for me to see? Why is it hard for me to see this person? Because it might be like something that's like a real like, oh, because they're whatever, they're rich or they're beautiful or whatever. And it's like, no, there's something else in there. Like, it's not, that like to look for the, like to really like look for the breadcrumbs as far as like, what is that inspiration in there? What's that kind of, like, what's the resonance? What's the resonance? Like, what's the thing? What's the part of that that's like really the hard part to look at and look at it. Okay. That's it for now, and I can't wait to see you for next time. We're going to do techniques and exercises. So, and the prompts: expand the chest on an inhale. And exhale, lift shoulders to the ears, like squeeze in a little bit so you get a little tremor, and then release down on the exhale. And tighten hands into fists. And inhale and release on the exhale. All right, I'll see you next time. All right, bye for now.